Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Friday's episode of Trending, brought to you by Iconic Coffee. Head over to shop.iconic.com and use the code TRENDING for 10% off. Richard, how you doing this morning?
I'm good, thank you. I've just realised how low down I am. Wait a minute, let me try and sit up a
Yeah,
bit.
you don't want to
There
get
you
any
go.
shorter, mate. You don't want to get any
No, I
shorter.
don't. Sit down short is not good.
Right, so I've got some breaking news this morning, something that no one saw coming, something that's come from completely left field. The UK has announced a further £450 million military support to Ukraine, Rich. Does that surprise you?
Not really.
I think
Nothing
at this point,
surprises me anymore.
I feel like I'm gonna wake up to a news story telling them they've given Ukraine my house.
Yeah.
It's got
wake
into
up
this
every day.
insane.
Yeah, you wake up every day and it just confirms what you thought the night before.
Yeah, it's just insane.
Don't you?
So I had this conversation with Beth last night, right? So we were watching football last night, and it pops up that TNT Sports are raising money for the humanitarian crisis in the earthquake that's just happened in Myanmar, right? And, encouraging people to donate. Great. Says in the thing, the UK government will match whatever is donated up to the value of 5 million. So then the commentator's saying about, the government have been incredibly generous with government money, donating £5 million, matching what you guys donate. And I'm sat there and I turned to Beth and I went, where do people think the government get their money? So it's not the government's money. It's the people's money. The governments are merely custodians of it. And that's the dynamic that is completely lost on most of the population, to be fair, because they look at that in a really apathetic way of, it's the government money, government choices, when they actually forget it's their money. It's their 30%, 20%, 40% tax, national insurance, VAT, council tax, road tax, property tax. It's all those taxes added together that form the government's money. It's not their money. They don't, Starmer's not out wheeling and dealing in King's Cross Market, is he? Ridiculous. So again, to give £500 million again to a country up in Northern Europe, in Ukraine, while there's people here unable to eat, there's people on the streets, you've got a lack of funding for whether it be social housing for people who are struggling, people on the street, whether it be for inquiries into things that have been covered up, whether it be for potholes in the street, whatever it is, there's no money for that. But when it comes to giving money to Ukraine, when it comes to money for weapons, when it comes to sending money abroad, when it comes to climate change projects, there's always money. Money's never a problem. Anyway, the government has announced a further £450 million of military support to Kiev. So weapons. Military support means weapons. So weapons that will kill people, kill Russian people, which will then bring the UK further into that conflict with Russia. Imagine the principle of this. You got a friend who doesn't like somebody and wants to go and take them out, and they borrow your gun to go and kill them. Do you think that the person they've killed's family isn't going to be looking at you? You might not have pulled the trigger, but you gave them the weapon to do so. Of course they're going to. And they know they're banking on that. This package includes hundreds of thousands of drones, weapons, anti-tank mines, and repairs to military vehicles. About 350 million will be provided by the UK, with extra funding from Norway via the UK-led International Fund for Ukraine. Sounds like an absolute black hole of money that no one's ever going to see. Sir Keir Starmer last month announced a 1.6 billion missile. This is just monopoly money, isn't it, in terms of the numbers? Missile deal for Ukraine following a summit of European leaders, on top of a 2.2 billion loan to provide military aid backed by profits from frozen Russian assets. And basically, Liberal Democrats are calling for more, not less. They're calling for even more. So that's amazing. And just to finish on this, to token on that, Prince Harry, who is apparently the ostracised member of the royal family, the one that is not really involved, well, he was in Ukraine this week to visit the victims of the Ukraine war. Just like William was there in his little uniform, giving it that a few months ago. They've all been up there. So even if you're not in the club anymore, apparently, like Harry isn't, when it comes to the big things, as we've talked about, Rich, they're all still on the same page, aren't they? So he's had his little photo op and his little token opportunity to go up to Kiev for a photo opportunity. Mate, I don't know where this ends. Well, I do know where it ends. You know where it ends. It ends if they win. It ends with an international conflict. But where does this end in the sense of people just going, everyday people going, hang on a minute. It's how much now? It's this, it's that. It's into the tens of billions if you add it all together. While people are struggling over here.
It ends when enough people stop it. It ends when the numbers shift over to the other side. There's only need to be, I think, it was sort of like 3% of us that really do. But it ends when people stop in large enough numbers and they don't understand what's going on. They don't understand, and it takes a long time to understand what's going on. If you can't get that the money they're sending over is your money,
Yeah.
and they're only custodials of it, I mean, it's like your lawyer spending your money for you. It's literally they work for you, and this is where the topsy-turvy element has come from. They've convinced people that you work for them. We have it even in schools now, where the teachers start sending you letters and stuff saying you're not doing this. Who the hell are you? You're you work for me. It's the other way around. You're
Yeah.
providing a service for me, not the other way around. And this is where we've gone completely inverted, satanically inverted. The president, the prime ministers, they all work for us. It's not the other way around. Never has been. The issue we have is that we can't collectively get our heads together because of the mainstream media and large parts of the alternative media, which is clearly an intelligence gathering anyway. It's upper levels, the ones that get all the numbers. That the fact is that people can't get themselves together because they're confused. That you don't hear anything about British Israelism. So Harry's over there being brainwashed all his life to believe that they're part of the lineage of the 12 tribes of Israel. I guarantee it. Google British Israelism. They believe that they are of that lineage and they will have a place in their world to come in this, and I keep saying it, messianic agenda. This is where it all ties back to. So if you don't understand where it's heading to, which is global communism, then you don't understand what's going on. So we're having a situation here that US is now aligned with Russia, which is going to be communist, obviously. And then on the other end, we're going to have China aligning with the UK and Europe. Oh, communist. It's a pincer movement to bring in this communist movement, which really is going to be the form of global technocracy. That's exactly what it is,
Yep.
which has been cultivated in China. So that's what they're doing. They're squeezing what's left out of the Roman Empire, as they see us as the Edomites and the Romans. We're the last man standing, basically, with this stuff in terms of what they need to be able to push through. And it's all of this messianic nonsense. So people don't understand that, as absurd and as silly as it is, because it is mad and it is silly and it is ridiculous, and all this biblical nonsense is people playing these silly stories out and killing people for thousands of years over it. Yes, it's lunacy, but they believe it, and that's what you need to get your head around.
It is, and the key words to remember when describing people in these positions that are making these decisions is they are public, servants. That's what they're classed as, public servants. They are there to essentially to serve and provide a purpose and a service to you. And that applies to police, that applies to military, that applies to civil servants, that applies to government ministers. They are there to serve you. They are in public office. So it's not their money, it's not their decisions, it's your decisions. It's your power that you've given to them. And the second that is figured out, it's all over.
Well, it is, and that's what they're terrified of. That's what they're terrified of. That's why they won't let shows like this have the viewership that it needs and it requires and it deserves, because they don't want that message out there. That's an empowering message. There's too many of us. They can't do anything.
Way too many of us.
Way too many of us. So you can send in your 200 little boys and do all of this stuff all you want. But the fact of the matter is there's too many of us. It's not going to end well. And the issue for me has always been damage limitation. These guys are not going to get what they want because it's lunacy. But look at what they're doing. They're killing many, many people over thousands of years for this lunacy. It's time to stop it for your kids' sake and your grandkids' sake.
I completely agree, and it's time to get off our asses and do it. Don't trust the process. Don't trust Q. Don't trust Trump. Don't trust any of that. That's what they're absolutely banking on you doing. So in the background, or not so much in the background really, they get their agenda over the line and you didn't even notice because you're too busy championing, thinking you're winning. Anyway, where are we going from here, Rich?
Kash Patel, he didn't last long, did he?
Kash
Patel, nice guy. Israel first. Kash Patel removed as Kash Patel removed as acting ATF director, replaced by Army Secretary. So obviously still I believe the head of the FBI, whatever that means. FBI director Kash Patel was removed as the acting director of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives. Now that sounds like, okay, that almost sort of sounds like goods and trade. But actually, when you look at it, it actually has a lot to do with freedom of expression and the way that you put out messages out there. Like these are the guys that go after the guy like music for censorship. It's these guys. So actually, it's completely the title is totally misleading there. And he's replaced by U.S. Army Secretary Daniel Driscoll. 7 people familiar with the matter said on Wednesday. Well, there's a 7 in there, so I would assume that's Kabbalistic coding. There, well, I'll just drop a 7 in there. Have a look into it. Driscoll will continue to serve as Army Secretary whilst he oversees the ATF, an arm of the U.S. Justice Department in version, said 3 of the sources who were granted anonymity, hard word, to discuss personal matters that were not yet public. There's some Kabbalah 3s and 7s in there coded. Again, he didn't last long. Musk didn't last long in his role. It was to get it through the door, and it was a holding pattern for these basically military guys to come in and take over there. And obviously, Trump was anti-war, wasn't he? He was trying to stop the wars and all that lot.
Oh yeah, with his $1 trillion
kind of did
budget.
the opposite. Yeah, exactly. So, come on, time to wake up. Time to stop this. This is nonsense.
Well, this is another one, isn't it, with this Kash Patel bloke, is he was going to do this, he was going to smash everything apart, everything was going to get exposed, trust the process, Q, trust the process, all this is coming out. I'm still waiting. I think everyone is, because it's not happened. It's not happened at all. It's all fake. It's all a load of rubbish. I mean, I don't get how anyone's still at this point, even after, what are we at, 4 months of this regime, believe a single word that is said. Given the Ukraine war was going to end in a day, hasn't happened. Epstein files were going to be exposed. Where are they then? How many people have been arrested? Anyone? Nope. JFK files were going to be exposed. Okay, they're out, but what's actually happened? Does it point the fingers at Israel? Nope. How many other things were going to happen? Oh, a fair few. None of which have. So I don't really get how anyone with a straight face can look at this administration and think anything other than they are as corrupt, if not more corrupt, as full of shit as every other one that has gone before. It's just pathetic. And this Kash Patel is just, insanity. Absolute insanity. What I've never understood is if you come into a job and you say, this is, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that, and then you don't, your fall from grace is huge, which is exactly what's happened with this bloke, because he came in really, really bold that he was going to do this, that, and the other, and he hasn't done any of it.
No.
So I don't know why people aren't up in arms. I mean, some people will be, but a lot will double down, because a lot of people would rather double down on a loser than admit they were wrong. And that's really sad. That is really, really sad. And
that's the biggest issue we face, Jay. Yeah, that's the biggest issue we face, is that people that were wrong haven't got the courage to admit they were wrong. We all get things wrong. We all do
Everyone
things.
Gets things wrong.
We're adults. It's life. We grow up, we learn. That's the whole point. The analogy of a child falling over, learning to walk. It doesn't mean your intentions weren't good and you didn't believe what Trump was doing. He's the bad one. He's the evil one. He purposely led you astray. But don't let him carry on doing it. You don't need to let him carry on doing it. It's not only him, Kash Patels of the world, the Elon Musks of the world, all these guys pushing this messianic, technocratic agenda that all, one thing that combines them all, they're all absolutely on their knees to Israel. Why? Yeah. Ask yourself why. What is it about the Israel agenda or the Israel plan that, and I'm not talking about the people of Israel, because obviously they're going to be used and abused as well. That's part of the plan. That's put down as them having to suffer for their sins. So they're going to be used too. It's the fact that what is it about these guys are trying to play out? And it's deep and it's dark and it has to do with these biblical prophecies. And these guys go in there and just push their little agenda through, get their little money, and they don't care about their great-grandkids, or they're compromised to the point where they can't do anything about it. So, Kash Patel is just a puppet. He's barely on a finger of the glove.
Yep, I agree. And if he goes, he'll be replaced by somebody else who will do absolutely nothing to help the people but further the agenda. He certainly will. Right, I've got some good news here, Rich. The UK economy grew more than expected in February. What
do we expect it to grow?
I don't know. I also don't really know what that means. in the sense of real life situations. So the UK economy grew by more than expected in February, according to latest official figures. The economy expanded by 0.5%, with the services sector having a strong month. Economists had predicted a growth of just 0.1%, but the ONS said several factors contributed to the surprise rise. Right, so the economy's growing great. So I'm assuming everyone watching this here in the UK, in February, March, your rent went down.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. I'm assuming your energy bills went down. Cost of your car payments went down. The cost of your food shopping went down. You probably had more disposable money at the end of the month. So fantastic news. Except that's in opposite land, isn't it? Because that's not what's happened. So the whole concept of economic growth and the growth of the economy will lead to the prosperous lives of people is complete BS, because when economies grow, that doesn't generally actually trickle down, thinking of tickling you, Rich, doesn't actually trickle down to real life savings and an increase in surplus money that people have. It doesn't. What that invariably will mean is some corporation, some CEO, some group of investors will have had a nicer dividend this month. It doesn't trickle down to real life situations where costs of services and quality of services improve and people have more money in their pocket. That's just not what happens. Hence why we have seen consistently people having less surplus money, higher bills, higher tariffs, higher everything, which is leading to more people in debt, more people in poverty, and less, people having the ability to basically just survive. So when you see stories about economic growth, they are just an absolute sham to mask what is going on and make it sound like the governments are doing a good job. Look, Rachel Reeves has done a great job. Look what's happened. The economy's growing. What does that mean, though? What does that actually mean? It's like somebody literally taking a shotgun, shooting you 10 times, going, as you're bleeding out, going, look, it's a beautiful day. The sun's out. Yeah, but you're dying, mate. It's ridiculous. It's such a pathetic way for these people to essentially pat themselves on the back and try and hoodwink you into thinking they know what they are doing. They're doing a great job. It's just mental to me. I mean, I only saw this. I was struggling, to be honest, to find a second story to really dive into. But so I just picked this one to kind of touch on like that, because most people will read economic growth and think that sounds good, that sounds great, but they don't actually know what that means. And economics sounds really complicated, and it's deliberately made to sound complicated, deliberately made to sound very vague, and you have to have you need an Eton degree to understand economics, darling. That's sort of rubbish when it's basic principle. If you've got X amount of money and you spend more than it, that's not great. If you've got X amount of money and you spend less than what you make, and you can have a surplus, which gives you confidence to purchase things, gives you confidence to save X, Y, and Z, that economically, that's quite a good position. No government's in that position. They all spend way more than they've got. They all borrow tons. Hence why the Earth, globally, collectively, is in debt of up to an eye-watering amount. It's just complete. Oh God, man! I studied economics. I find this whole thing interesting, and it's just, to me, it's just pathetic. You've got people. We've said about Rachel Reeves. Rachel Reeves wouldn't get a job as an accounts admin assistant at a backstreet accountant, and somehow you're meant to believe that she's in charge of the economy. She's not. She's doing what she's told, and she's too clearly very malleable and very power hungry, and is very comfortable doing that. And I'm sure lots of the people around her convince her that the ideas they're pushing are hers. After all, that's how narcissists get in situations where they're in power. Just tell them it's their idea and they'll go for it. So Trump's another example of that. So when you see stories like this, it's a bigger slap in the face, I think, than seeing the truth that. I mean, it's as close a slap in the face to money being sent to Ukraine or being sent abroad while people here are struggling. They're trying to convince you that everything's going well when watching this, is it? Do you feel more confident in your financial situation than you did a year ago, 2 years ago? Do you? What's your thoughts on this, Richard, mate?
Well, listen, they sell an endorphin rush, don't they? A little 0.5% endorphin rush. And you go, oh, I suddenly feel a little bit safer for a second there. And you get hooked on that endorphin rush of like, oh, my stomach's making some endorphins there. I feel good. That made me feel a little bit safer. They made you feel scared in the first place. Obviously, that zero point 0.5 either doesn't exist or it goes straight to Ukraine anyway. They've just told you that. More than that goes to Ukraine. That's the whole point. But they're selling you a little endorphin rush to keep you at bay, and this is kind of like the soma of I think it's 1984 that they give you. It's that little, and it's your chemical anyway. You're producing it. They're just pushing the right button, and you get that little endorphin rush, and you go, "Oh, I feel a bit better now."
Exactly.
Oh, thank God for that. I can breathe a little bit better. I can get on with my day. That's what they're selling you. You produce it anyway, so they sell you what you produce. They just know what buttons to push, and that's what economics is. It's just numbers to push buttons inside you to create a feeling of security or fear. Look what Trump's doing. He's clearly creating chaos and fear. He doesn't have intention of doing any of that stuff.
No.
He ain't got the power to do any of that stuff. But he's creating the chaos and the fear that will create the outcome of people not using their finances in a certain way or using their finances in a certain way. That's how it works, and it all works through you. They just push the buttons. It's just the whole analogy of the archons, whether they're real or not. The whole point of it is an understanding that they work through you. They can't do any of this without you. And that's the greatest message, is that none of this happens unless people do it en masse. They can only guide you and herd you in a certain direction. They have no power over you other than your own to use upon yourself. So it's just another way of them pushing the endorphin button and going to give you a little bit, keep you at bay. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, I agree. Right, what's your second story, bud?
First Ofcom probe launched into suicide site exposed by BBC. Now, that's obviously a fantastic thing in terms of the suicide sites. I mean, how do we get to this point? How do these sites even remain on the internet? I have no idea. It baffles me. So a pro-suicide forum.
Jesus.
Now, I think I might have just answered my own question, because if you've got a death cult, you probably want pro-suicide forums to stay on the internet and then pretend that you don't. A pro-suicide forum is under investigation by the UK's online regulator. It's first using new powers under the Online Safety Act. So again, this is a positive thing, obviously, but it's using these online powers straight away. And that's obviously what they want to use it for. They've weaponized these poor sods who feel down and out. I wonder how they feel down and out, because you're not pressing their endorphin buttons. The forum, which Ofcom has not named, is understood to be a site of BBC News. The BBC News has been investigating for the last 3 years, linking it to at least 50 deaths in the UK. The site has tens of thousands of members, including children, and users discuss methods of suicide, sharing instructions about how to buy and use potentially deadly toxics. And there's pictures of kids on here that have gone through with it. And it's just, I mean, you have the demise pill anyway. So when they do it, it's all right. The first investigation could lead to fines or court orders against those running the forum, as it should. It's horrific. But I wonder who's allowing that to happen. If they can take down my X account for saying something against Israel, surely this has been allowed to go on. Come on. We're not idiots, some of us that are left that we're not. So that's the first use of these new powers. So the Online Safety Act became law in October 2023, and Ofcom spent the last 18 months drawing up guidelines and codes of practice for platforms to follow anti-Semitism stuff. On the 17th of March, Ofcom got powers to take action against sites hosting illegal content, which include assisted suicide. Unless it's called the demise pill, then you get a nice kickback from the government. All websites will now have to show they have systems in place to remove illegal material. If they fail to do so, the regulator can court orders to block platforms or impose fines of up to 18 million. So again, they're trying to regulate the internet, and they're using this as an excuse to do so. It's a valid excuse to put in certain aspects of it, but it won't be used like that. As we say always, it won't be used like that. Everything is just an excuse to usher it in and Trojan horse it through the door. So this is off and running now, the Ofcom stuff. And it's gonna, you had BitChute, not in the UK anymore. We're seeing this unfold. Technocracy are folding around us. People need to wake up very, very quickly.
Yes, they do. They 100% do. And this is the thing we always talk about, is there's usually a justifiable reason. So earlier in the week, we were talking about the assisted dying bill, saying that, you know, people that are in excruciating pain, that want to end their life on their terms, there's some sympathy towards that I would expect from all sides, including from myself. You know, I was in that situation where I couldn't get out of my bed and I was really in trouble, then, I think it would be a decision you would like to have the ability to make, but that's not what it's there for, obviously. And it's the same principle here. The sales pitch of we have to protect children online from being, one, radicalized, from being idealized with things like we're seeing here. Like you just mentioned, Rich, there's kids on this website. That's important. That is a sales pitch that most people would listen to and observe and go, yeah, I can get on board with that. However, that's the foot in the door. It's then going to take one step further, and they will use sensational, emotive headlines like we've seen here to garner public opinion to be on the side of suppressing. And if Ofcom came out and announced today that we've shut down this website that's encouraging people to commit suicide, 99.9% of people in the country would be clapping hands going, great, including us. But that's not where it ends. And that's the point. For years, there's been, you can't say certain things on the internet. Your X account gets deleted, your Facebook gets deleted, your shadow banned, X, Y, and Z, but there's still incredibly graphic, abusive pornography of children on the website. Sorry, on websites that people find, including on social media sites. The Taliban still had Twitter. It's very selective about what they choose to block. If they wanted to, they could stop those things from being there, but they don't. Instead, they target things that go against the system. It's very clear to see, and the Online Harms Bill will do exactly the same. It will be very selective about what it goes and targets. If it targeted sites like this and things that were genuinely encouraging violence, hatred, abuse, that's very different. That would get support, and that would get support, including support from the likes of us. However, that's not what it's about. That's the foot in the door. And you made a good point. What they've done with BitChute is a way of trying to stop the free flow of information. So when they bring about more and more things that people are starting to question, it's very difficult, or more difficult, for people to get independent and, the other side of the argument information on whatever the event or the policy or the happening is. That's why Iconic's so important, and that's why no matter what, we'll stand up in the face of it, whatever it takes. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm not tricking you this time. I actually do have a nice story for us to finish on. So this is a story from thetoday.com. An 81... Well, I'll say it's a nice story. It ends nice. The headline isn't, when you think about what this woman's had to deal with. Anyway, an 81-year-old waitress said she couldn't retire. She didn't have enough money to retire, despite having worked her whole life, and was struggling to get around in this diner over in the States. So a stranger who had been in the restaurant and observed the fact that she was clearly, very elderly and clearly really struggling to get around, has raised over $300,000 for her through various different means, GoFundMe, and created some social content, which has allowed this lady to retire and enjoy the remaining years of her life. Which, this is a lovely story in the sense of it's a very selfless, heartwarming story of somebody who has done something very nice on behalf of somebody else, somebody they didn't know. But it does highlight a problem. Why is an 81-year-old still having to work day in, day out just to survive when they've worked their whole life? That shows that the system is completely broken. But the point of this story is to highlight that although there is a lot of darkness out there, there's a lot of very sinister people, there's a lot of very selfish people that have their own agendas and motivations behind whatever they do, and that's not just the elite. There's a lot of people in everyday society that would happily screw over somebody else if it benefited them. There is also a lot of very, very lovely people who are very selfless, who will do whatever they need to do to benefit others and do acts like this. So well done to this lady who has raised all this money for this woman. Her name, I'm going to try and announce. Her name is Betty Conzier. And the money that has been raised, Tammy Conzier, and the money that has been raised to her is going to allow her to see out the rest of her life with hopefully a little bit of dignity and not have to work. So well done to the lady that's raised the money for her. Good on you.
Well, exactly. That highlights a problem, but it highlights a solution at the same time. Like it always does. They come hand in hand. Community, people, if you even put £1 in and 1,000 of you put £1 into something that you all believe in, it's a success. We have the
Community.
numbers. It'll always be basic economics. It will always be that way. Community, people, numbers. They don't have it. We do by a light year. And all we need to do is understand that none of them give a crap about us. Not a single one of them.
Yep.
They don't. Why would they? It doesn't benefit them.
No.
But we have each other. And that's the thing. And that's what they're terrified of. There's too many of us. And that's just highlights what can happen when some people give a little into the same cause that they all believe in. And it's an obvious cause. It don't have to be a political cause. It doesn't have to be. It just is an obvious do the right thing, common sense cause. That's all you do. That's all we need to do is just look at our common sense and go, would I like someone to do that for me? Do I want to be treated the way in which I'm treating someone else? It's as simple as it really is. Very simple.
Absolutely, I completely agree. Doing an act on behalf of others, a selfless act on behalf of others, firstly, it's very fulfilling. And it also, that's how we circumvent this ridiculous system that we're in. We spoke about through the winter where, there would be people in your local town, your local village, your local city, possibly even your street that are really struggling to choose between heating and eating. Well, let's reach out, let's help, there's other people in that street who know that. And if, let's say hypothetically, you got somebody who has that decision to make and they can't afford to put food on the table. Well, I'm pretty sure in a street or a flat block or something, if every one of you helped out once a week, if every one of you helped out with one meal a week, what's one meal a week going to really cost you? It's not going to cost you too much to extend your meal and extend your plate to help somebody out. And if everybody does that, all of a sudden that person's life's completely changed. And it's not changed because of the government, it's changed because of the community. And community is the way out of this, I think. I spent the first 2 days of this week down in Sussex at the Hope Project, which is an amazing homeschool kind of group collective down near Battle in East Sussex. And the sense of community, togetherness was just absolutely incredible and incredibly inspiring. It was right down from the kids that were there as young as 4 or 5 years old, right up to the parents of those kids. Everyone was mucking in as a community together, and it was amazing. It really did inspire me and kind of re-showed what can be done if the fault lines of, that's mine, here's my fence around what's mine and no one else is coming in. If that sort of thing is diminished and people actually work together as a community, the whole saying, it takes a village to raise a child. I think it takes a village, it takes a community to do anything of any note, really, because, we need to support each other much more. And that's one of the main reasons that the whole system is designed to keep us apart, because they know when there is that unity, when there is that connectivity between people, amazing things can happen. And you support each other. You give, someone a hand up when they need it. Someone gives you a hand up when you need it, and you really push each other to be the best versions of yourself. That's what you need. You can break that down to so many simple analogies. If you go to the gym every day, I guarantee you'll train harder if you're training with a partner. If you have got kids, I guarantee you're going to work that bit harder because you're working to provide for them, to give something to them. Community is so important, so important, and that's what we need to get back to. And it doesn't have to be on a grand scale. I think it can start at your local level. It can start with your flat block. It can start with your street. And then it goes from there, I think.
But it can start with you. You can start with them. The other thing I just want to add to that quickly is we spoke about the endorphin pushing earlier. They've got that endorphin. You can get that by just helping someone else. So it's the same feeling, and it's yours and in control. You're in control of it.
Yeah, I agree completely. Right, well, thank you, Richard. We will be back on Monday. Gareth is in Serbia, so I don't know if it's me and you Monday or if I'm doing it on my own. We'll discuss that over the weekend, I suppose. But have a lovely weekend.
Be here, so yeah.
Have a lovely weekend, mate. We've got the last 2 days, I believe, of nice weather, and then it turns next week back to rainy little England. But we've been blessed, to be fair, the last 10 days here. It's been absolutely gorgeous. So we'll enjoy the last couple of days of that. Thank you for tuning in with us all week, as always, and for your continued support. Just a week to go now till the Iconic Live next Friday in Sutton Coldfield, where you'll be able to see myself, Rich, Gareth, David, and Christiana on stage. God, last time was absolutely hilarious. We went from talking about the state of the world to talking about David flooding his neighbour's flat. So it's an interesting evening, to say the least. So hopefully we can see as many of you there as possible. We'll put the link to tickets in the description. And I will speak to you on Monday, Rich. Have a good weekend, mate.
See you later, guys. Take care.
Cheers. Thank you.